Well, the Communist Party of China has done it again, hasn't it? Xi Jinping, the celebrated tyrant, has failed to alert the world to the coronavirus pandemic that has swept through almost every country the globe over. So well done, Mr. Xi Jinping. Couldn't you be bothered to tell us about the outbreak in Wuhan? Maybe you were too busy playing ping pong to notice that Covid-19 infections were spreading exponentially. Perhaps you knew, but you could not be bothered to notify the global community because you were too busy washing your socks. Now the Chinese virus or the Wuhan disease has killed thousands, infected millions, and has devastated the world economy. Good old-fashioned communism, the friend of the people, so friendly in fact that a third of the world's population can't leave their homes. Social distancing and isolation have become the norm, and lockdowns will burden us with more suffering in the future. Health emergencies are on the rise and people can't attend life-saving procedures. Undiagnosed health implications and complaints are leading to health catastrophes across the globe. Stress is an endemic, with a third of the people sleeping less, eating more unhealthy food and consuming more alcohol. A round of applause please for the magnificent Xi Jinping. Mental health in numerous countries is in decline, with millions of people reporting significant depression or anxiety. Drug abuse, domestic violence and child abuse have witnessed a sudden increase in many countries. Spain, Canada, the UK, Germany are among those who have reported a surge in domestic violence cases. UNICEF, the children's charity, reports hundreds of millions of children around the world will likely face increasing threats to their safety and well-being, including mistreatment, gender-based violence, exploitation, social exclusion and separation from caregivers. So give Mr. Xi Jinping a round of applause please. He deserves it. And in some parts of the world, Xi Jinping's Chinese virus is responsible for social unrest and violence. According to one source, in Kenya, police beat people for defying a stay-at-home order and shot to death a 13-year-old boy who was standing on his balcony. Human rights activists in Nigeria say that at least 18 people have been killed by security forces during the lockdown. Come on guys, you know what to do. Give a round of applause to Mr. Xi Jinping. The economic catastrophe that has now overwhelmed this world is a calamity that won't be easily fixed. The financial consequence of this will be worse than the damage caused by the virus itself. Oh, everyone says the government will pay, but when would it sink in that when we say the government, we mean us? We will pay in heavier taxes, higher prices, lower wages, longer hours, ravaged savings, shriveled pensions, less freedom of all kinds. Yet the financial penalties of Mr. Xi Jinping's Chinese virus are immense. $9 trillion in fact. But who cares? Mr. Xi Jinping has better things to do with his time, like reading Mao's Little Red Book or painting a portrait of Lenin. Oh, and by the way, there's just one country that isn't forecast to go into recession. Yep, you've guessed it. That's Mr. Xi Jinping's China. Just 1.3% growth admittedly, but that's better than the rest of the world, which would be in the biggest slump since the Great Depression, so who cares? Good old Mr. Xi Jinping. Go on, give him a round of applause. Western traditional liberty is now fragmented and crumbling, with police throughout the Western world stamping on civil privilege. If you think our former liberty will ever return, you are mistaken. We will become a lot more like China once this is finished, because we have to. I used to fear this as a distant prospect. Now I see it as a more immediate one. Some of you will be lamenting, don't be so melodramatic, but just remember that in 1914 the British government introduced a new law to restrict alcohol consumption in pubs, so the workers would put in a full-day work during the First World War effort. It was not until the Licensing Act of 1988 that some of that legislation was reformed, and that meant the pubs could open to the public all day. I mean, come on, it only took 74 years. So well done, Mr. Xi Jinping. Let's give him a round of applause. Not content with 94 million deaths between the years 1900 and 2000 in territories as diverse as China, North Korea, the Soviet Union, Afghanistan, Cuba, Eastern Europe, Vietnam, Laos and any other rabid communist regime are forgotten, the communists in the 21st century led by Xi Jinping have decided to unleash a depraved pandemic and unfurl it throughout global civilization. I don't care that the do-gooders at the BBC and CNN castigate President Trump for his use of the phrase Chinese virus, because that's exactly what it is, originating in Wuhan province of China and multiplying across the globe because of the negligence of the Communist Party of China. The Chinese virus is not only an uninvited infection, it's symbolic of Mr. Xi Jinping, who was probably too busy to alert the rest of the world because he was reading Das Kapital and worshipping the murderer Stalin. This depraved and perverse virus is symbolic of a political dogma called communism that's twisted, degenerate and nefarious. It can be likened to a swarm of rats nesting and feeding in a cesspit. That's what communism is after all. It's an unworkable creed based on unfeasible solutions and unachievable primitive goals. Nearly 100 million dead souls agonised and languished at its hands. Democide and torture, famine and neglect, misery and sorrow. These are some of the cliches that are appropriate to describe the horrors that communism has bestowed upon the world. And now we can add one more. Covid-19, or indeed the Chinese virus. Thanks very much for watching my video. And remember guys, choose love.